All right, so I'm here with Eddy Rolon. This is Todd Atkins, and Eddie, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe introduce yourself to some new people if they're not familiar with you.
Well, my name is Eddy Rolon. I fought mixed martial arts as an amateur and became a professional in 2001 after being an amateur since 1998. So I was part of the underground forum, which is a blast from the past for those that have been following it that long. Yeah, I guess I think I have an interesting story of how I got into mixed martial arts. Opened up a gym, got to fight professional, got to win an election, be a member of a school board, the only cage fighter I know that may have done that, and living life.
So maybe start out talking about how you first started to look at maybe martial arts and then possibly after that mixed martial arts competition.
Well, my first experience was my mom set me up for Taekwondo lessons. And the guy who had the school when I was 10 years old in Jersey City was an incredible athlete. He could back flip off the wall. He could kick way over his head. He was there for about 2 or 3 months, and he left town. When a whole bunch of people had joined up, and the person who had taken over was a non-athletic woman who couldn't kick higher than her hip. And so everybody started leaving it, and I was dissuaded too. So just when I think my 6 months were ending, the guy came back and said, there's something really important happened in Korea, and I had to go there and fix it. And I'm back now, and if everybody pays for 3 months, 6 months, a year, we can save the school. And so a lot of parents did. They all chipped in their money, and I think I was a white belt with a couple of stripes, getting ready for my yellow belt. My mom kicked in for however many months, and the guy disappeared. So instead of Taekwondo, it was Take My Do. And the way we found out is we showed up for class, and there were signs in the window for the Republican headquarters for the next mayor election in Jersey City. So it was definitely a souring experience on traditional martial arts. So I had stayed away from it for quite a few years until I was forced to watch my first mixed martial arts event. It would have been in 1997. I was working for Comcast Cable, and they had me monitor one of the UFCs because the early UFCs, as many of us know, had terrible problems with audio. And people had complained about the audio problems and the dropouts, and they wanted refunds. So my job in that fateful night was to watch the UFC and write down the times when the audio would drop out. If it dropped out, I guess more than 5 times for more than a couple of seconds, they were going to issue refunds. So as I'm watching it, I really hadn't followed how it came to be. I knew it was on pay-per-view. I figured it was kind of like pro wrestling, that was fake. And I was immediately just from the previews, I was like, I think this is real. I think this is what pro wrestling would look like if it was real. And just seemed very honest, and something about it really spoke to me. So I remember being just glued to it. And I believe Steve Jenham won that night. So it was the UFC 3. And I was just, taken aback by it. And I wanted to pursue it. So if that was 1997, and I was working for the cable company, I had found out about BAMA, Bayside Academy of Martial Arts, was holding shoot fights. The owner of BAMA was Dan Maragolata, who's the guy that we see in the octagon all the time now. He was running these shows, and I signed up at the end of 1997. So I guess it was December of 1997 to fight in one of the BAMA shoot fights on February 28th, 1998. So I signed up to fight 2 months before. So I had no experience in competing in anything combat sports related. I never competed in Taekwondo. I didn't box. I didn't wrestle. I did swimming, track, football, some baseball. And I did it backwards. After I agreed to fight, I found a place on January 5th as my first day training to train. And the guy who owned the school, Rick Sikora, said, yeah, I'll teach you, wrestling and jiu-jitsu and judo and boxing, and we'll get you ready for this. So it's like, all right, perfect. A match made in heaven. I started training there. And about 3 or 4 weeks in, he said, all right, now we're going to switch over to stick fighting. I was like, Rick, that's cool and all, but I have a fight coming up in about a month. And, if we could just more of that grappling and wrestling and jiu-jitsu stuff. And he very politely said, hey, Ed, it's not all about you. So I took that to heart, that, it wasn't all about me. And, I learned some of the stick fighting stuff. Eventually went back to the wrestling, jiu-jitsu. About 2 weeks before the fight, I got married, so that cut into my time for training. My wife at the time, still my wife. You still here, honey? She's not answering, but she's still my wife. We married 23 plus years. She said, fine, do this once, get it out of your system. And, then I never want to hear about it again. Well, you're gonna come see the fight, right? No, I don't want to come see the fight. Just let me know how it turns out. She actually had to go to a wedding party or a bridal shower for a friend of hers with a medium, someone giving like a seance and doing ESP and crystal ball stuff. So I joked with her. I said, maybe ask her how it's going to turn out. And you could like text me, it's 1998, let me know I'm going to get killed and I'll get out of there right away. But it turned out very differently. I won the fight with 1 second left. Even though I was set up to lose, I was, really 6, maybe 7 weeks of training against a guy who had almost 3 years of training. The guy I was initially supposed to fight probably never existed. I was told I'm going to fight a guy that had 6 months experience. He was 230 pounds and, be a good matchup, And the guy, he never showed up. You're actually fighting Phil Friedman. He's a blue belt under Dave Adiv, and he teaches the kids classes there. The guy was huge, 268, over 6 foot. So I agreed to fight. I'm not going to say no. So the fight starts, and this is my introduction to shoot fighting. The mixed martial arts. We're still called NHB. Nobody's calling it MMA yet. So the rules for this engagement was open hand to the head, closed fist to the body, no headbutts, no elbows, but you could kick and knee the head standing, and you couldn't do any strikes on the ground unless it went to overtime. So when the match started, I stayed nice and calm, did everything that I was supposed to, and the guy just wrecked me, took me down right away. If it was jiu-jitsu points, I was probably losing by the 9-minute mark by 24 points to 2. I had an accidental sweep. So, during this extra rules for shoot fighting about, similar to pro wrestling, is you can grab the rope and get out of a submission hold. So early on, I was put into an arm bar. And as the guy's applying the arm bar, I'm trying to curl away from it. I grab the rope and I'm shaking it. And it's right in his corner too. So David Deeve is counting this as a tap and saying, stop the match, you tapped. But Dan said, no, he's allowed to grab the rope. But I popped the capsule on my elbow. The guy full extended me. So I go back to my corner. My corner man, Rick Secora, the guy who owned the school, had car trouble. He never showed up. My corner man was actually a friend from high school who didn't want me to do this. He didn't think it was a good idea. It was the only person I knew. It was maybe an arena of, I had a guess, maybe there was 220 or something people, and there were people outside looking through the windows. So I knew nobody else in there except Dan and a few other people I met when I signed up for the fights. So my corner man was not very, what would you say? He was not very positive. He was shaking his head. He's like, it's kind of like, let's get out of here. Like, no, I'm all right. I'm okay. So go back in. These are 10-minute rounds straight. No 3-minute rounds, no 5-minute rounds. It was 10 minutes straight before he got to an overtime. So I guess we're about 3 minutes in, and I go in there, fight some more, get thrown around some more, and he gets me in a choke from mount, and I'm too far to reach the ropes. So as he's choking me and I'm blacking out, I'm trying to interfere with it. I'm pushing with my feet. I wear wrestling shoes, good traction, and slide my back close enough to the rope so I can grab it again. But in watching the VHS years later, Dan's watching me. He's not watching my hands. I'm shaking the ropes for a good 3-4 seconds before Dan stops the match. I spit out my mouthpiece, dry even. It was pretty gross. Go back to my corner, and my corner man at some point had gotten a hot dog. So my corner man has a hot dog. I can smell it on him. I'm feeling so nauseous. I think Dan said, "You still want to fight?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to fight." So my corner man, cleans up my mouthpiece, gives me some water, puts me back in there, and I think I landed one strike at 7 minutes. It was really, really thrown hard and well, and all I did was mess his hair and make him mad. So the guy comes in for a huge double leg takedown, and I'm so out of it, exhausted, because I definitely didn't have a cardio. I had the determination, but I didn't have a cardio. I didn't have the technique. I didn't have the experience. So when he took me down so hard and I didn't sprawl or resist it, he actually did all the work for me. He reversed himself. So I wound up being on top in his guard. So, what do you do when you have, 6 weeks of training and, no real idea? You go Frankenstein choke. which is he had to get arm barred 101. So this time when he goes for the arm bar, it seemed more familiar. I get my hands together. And while I'm in there, I was able to breathe slow. I was about think about the situation. I could feel him using a lot of effort trying to finish the arm bar and break the grip. And I was confident in my grip. So I let him work it like an extra 30 seconds. I could have got out sooner, but I let him work a little extra. And then I kneeled on one of his legs with my knee. So when he went for the belly down arm bar, all that pressure went to his leg. And he didn't like that. He eventually opened up. There's a scramble. And, I guess we're about 8.5 minutes in. But in the scramble, I get on top in side mount. And I kind of get him in a neck crank, choke, smother. He reverses me, but I kept it on him, smother him pretty good against my chest. I know it's late in the match. My arms are dead tired, but I'm definitely determined to try to make this work. And he bites me. Guy bit me. And back in this day, I weighed 235 or 230. He weighed 235. We fought with our shirts on, wrestling shoes, but I had the sexy little Speedo pants on. That's what I like to wear. So when he bites me, I yell, he bit me. And Dan didn't see it. He's a referee and he was out of position to see it. So he asked the other guy, he says, Phil, did you bite him? And I loosen up a little bit on the hold I have. And Phil lifts his head and he shakes it and goes, no, fight. In Dan's defense, maybe he thought I got like, sometimes somebody's knee or elbow pinches your skin to the mat. And I was complaining about that. But I was pretty sure I was bit. So he switches to the other side of me. I'm getting the smother, I'm getting the choke in. And this time, facing the camera, you can see him spit out his mouthpiece and bite me a second time. He bites lower on my stomach, he pulls and he rips. And I yell, he's effing biting me. I don't curse much, so it's one of the few times I cursed. And you can see Dan laughing, you can hear people in the crowd laughing. I'd already roped out twice, so it's all but said and done. But as he's still trying to bite me, I shift him. I get the smother, I get his nose and his mouth to seal. And he's panicking, and he taps. The bell goes off, and with 1 second left, he tapped out. So that was my first fight, and it left an impression with a few people there. That I definitely stepped up to somebody I shouldn't have, fought at all at that point, or definitely not won against. So I got a lot of accolades from people who were there that night. It was a heck of a comeback. After the fight, Dan comes over with Phil. Phil apologized for biting me. He said something about going into a survival state, and he can't believe he did that. He's so embarrassed. So I was like, hey, it's no problem. I thought you were pretty cool beforehand. I was very surprised about that, but it's all good. So Dan comes over and he goes, you guys are gonna fight again in 2 months. And Phil, you have to put up a $2,000 bond. And if you foul Eddy in any way, shape, or form, he gets 1,000 and I get 1,000. What? It's a weird way to try to profit off of that. But as far as I know, Phil never fought again. But that was my first MMA fight. When I got the VHS a couple of weeks later, I showed it to my wife, and she turns to me and she goes, "When are you fighting again?" So things change. She was more interested in it now. And in the following years, she had come to every local fight. There was a few when I fought in California and even grappled out in Vegas that she wasn't able to get to. But she was in my corner a few times for grappling matches. She wound up competing herself in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She has 2 second place, 1 first place. It's a different world than anybody who grew up with me would have thought I would have gotten involved in. Dungeons and Dragons guy. I was for my school superlatives. I was class wit and class scientist. Not a fighter, not a troublemaker. Class clown, sure. But there was something about this that was so different than what I expected. Combat sports to be. Made me look at boxing different, and wrestling, and judo, and actually it actually sparked an interest in chess. That I started playing chess and thinking this is a very physical chess game. And it definitely influenced how I looked at training and competing and teaching others. And that's eventually we came up with the name Team Endgame. Long before Marvel Studios had any part of it. It was back in 2001. Endgame Combat Sports Academy. I brought a business plan to a large place called Rexplex. After I fought that first fight, I continued fighting amateur. I believe my amateur record was 12-7. but I won 2 belts in 2000 for my weight class. And then last minute, I went to a heavier weight class to fill in for somebody that didn't show. And my opponent for a single match didn't show. So I wound up winning that second match. And that was one that was on MSNBC that at the time the Underground really liked, where I got the guy with the double ankle lock when he had my back, and he dramatically tapped out. There was a 4-man tournament. I got to fight in some 8-man or into an 8-man tournament in July of 1998. I was the second lightest guy. I fought at 223 pounds. The lightest guy was like 217. The heaviest guy was over 400. The guy I had in the finals that I lost to was, I think, 320. And I lost the decision to him, 10 minutes straight, and then a 5-minute overtime. But the best thing about that story is, as we're working our way through the tournament and we know we're fighting each other in the finals, I was in the restroom relieving myself, and he comes in, he pees and he leaves, and then he realized he didn't wash his hands, so he has to come back in and wash his hands. And I said thank you, because I appreciated that. It was a very sportsmanlike thing to do before we were going to fight. But it ruined all the scowling. That was Greg Luchuk. He passed away a few years ago, but incredible guy. It was an honor to fight him back in 1998. Definitely something I still think about. It was a rough night. He got me gurgling. I didn't tap out. I went the distance, but it was close. I got so many stories about I guess some of the people from the day that I didn't think I'd ever meet. You consider, I guess, sports like, you can't go shoot free throws with Michael Jordan. You can't go, hit baseballs with A-Rod. But and this sport was so different. I got to, roll and hang out with Randy Couture and Jeremy Horn. Jeremy Horn was in my corner for 3 fights. It was so different than, you're a pro athlete. Yeah, I'm a pro athlete. I get paid to fight. I get paid to train people. I get to do seminars. I get to, do something and just change my life from, working at a cable company and, doing that up and down the pole thing to owning my own gym and, having a lot more time with my family than I would have if I continued having a 9-to-5 job. Definitely got to travel a lot more. Got to be all over the United States for grappling matches. I helped out with Grappler's Quest for quite a few years, Brian Simmons. So, he'd fly us out to Vegas. We'd help run the show. I got to be in some of the super fights. It was definitely a different lifestyle than any of my teachers or friends from grammar school or high school would have pictured for me. So I'm definitely happy to have taken that journey as opposed to work through the cable company, get to middle management, and hope you get a pension, which these days that doesn't happen too often.
And I'm wondering, like, as you were competing, because this was so new, and I've talked to a lot of guys like this, maybe talk about the adjustments or some things that you started to realize as you were fighting, maybe technical adjustments you're making or approaches to technique, some of the things you were focusing on back then.
Well, Rick Sakura was my instructor for the first, I guess, year and a half of sorts. He gave me a key to the gym after 6 months. So I started running something called an open mat. And this open mat was, broadcast on the Underground and on AOL, and for I found out some of the other places that combat sports guys would hang out, and that was where I learned the most about technique and pacing. Because with this open mat, you didn't know who was going to show up. A wrestler, judo guy, jiu-jitsu guy, hapkido guys, tai chi guy, and you make fun of any of them, on some level, but there's something to learn from everybody. So technique wise, I just, that Bruce Lee idea of like, find your own style, take a little bit from there, a little bit from that. And I definitely like Thai. I like to kick low. I didn't like to kick high, I had unstable knees. And that's from football, all the years of cage fighting and grappling didn't do half the damage to me that 4 years of high school football did, which says a lot about, which sport's more dangerous. And really, I guess what I learned from all these people is that when you appreciate what they're doing and you start looking at things as technique, relaxation, and strategy before everything else, before strength, before speed, before endurance, for your cardio, if you can stay calm, it's like tripling, quadrupling, quintupling your cardio, but just not, spending it all over the place. So learning that from some calm customers, and then, hey, let's pop quick and fast, and let's be athletic and fast and strong. When we have a good opportunity, a good move, but a good chance to, set something up. So that's different than the aggression. One of the fighters I liked to watch the most back then was Tank Abbott. I thought he was so much fun to watch. He's an explosive guy. He's got some wrestling technique. He's a character, but it's not somebody I want to emulate fighting style, because it seemed like too much of a roll of the dice. I didn't want to roll the dice so much. I wanted to, try to stick to my strengths. Try to guard myself. Takedowns were my weakness. I guess even aggression would be one of the weaknesses I had. I was accused of playing possum a lot of times, and that was me feeling out and trying to wait for a nice moment. So I've had a few quick matches. I think the fastest one I ever had was a 31-second guillotine that I caught in one of the that shoot fighting tournament, that 8-man. That was the first match, and just it was I maybe could have finished at 10 seconds if I didn't just try to remember everything and do it calmly and step into it. So the pacing, I guess, was the most important thing for me. Being calm, paced, having a strategy, having a backup strategy, having a backup to the backup strategy. Even making things up, as you go. I created a leg lock that won me an IFC heavyweight championship underneath the mount. I was under the mount getting beat up, and I was able to figure out a leg lock from underneath there based on the principles of what others had taught me. So, it's definitely, more cerebral than, a lot of people probably would give it credit for. And even in advanced, age and with health problems, at 48 years old, I don't think there's too many guys walking down my street that would have a chance, because they wouldn't be calm, they wouldn't have the technique. And, I'd wait for a good moment, and, one-on-one unarmed combat, I'm pretty proud of what I can do, what I can still do. I don't think, I don't think the other sports out there, or the other, or any really combat sports talk about that enough. That it's not just being hard and aggressive. No, it's being cool. And a couple of fighters that kind of epitomize that. Jeremy Horn was one of them. He could he stay calm and just go with the flow, and just he got hit. It's no big deal unless you poke him in the eye. But other than that, that was one of my idols. That wow, look at this guy. Look what he did to Frank Shamrock so early into his career, and he got caught by that knee bar. Which props to Frank. That was awesome. But I was way more impressed with Jeremy Horn and what he had done, and throughout his career. So it was great to be able to train with him. In 2003, my wife, for my 30th birthday, sent me to the Miletich camp. So I had got to work out Jeremy Horn for a week. And I think they charged me $50 for the week. Ooh. But I got to work out with Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes, Pat Miletich, Jens Pulver, I think was hurt from a fight with Dwayne Bang Ludwig a week before, so I didn't get to work out with him. Some of the guys from the early seasons of the Tough TUF were there too. So I guess what I learned is hey, learn from everybody. Learn from any source. I swear my first 8-man tournament, I used Lamaze breathing to get out of the choke. So any source is good. You use that to your advantage.
So maybe what do you feel like you learned from training with guys like Jeremy Horn, for instance? What was something that you took away that you could remember?
Well, I actually gave him credit recently. He was named the third most prolific MMA fighter in somebody had counted up, and he had taught me so much about underhook from half guard. I'd only been using it effectively from the bottom of side mount. I used to call it throw by, but I invented something, and I invented it for myself. But to see somebody else using it from half guard, and it completely changed my grappling game. Being able to Eddie Bravo, a couple of years later, came out with his books with his half guard and his double underhooks. But it's really about that outside underhook from half guard. I was able to do so much from there against the biggest opponents. I had Nick Kajia, big Nick Kajia. I don't know if you know him. He's got like 60 plus belts between Naga and grappling. Grappler's Quest and different jiu-jitsu tournaments. But these guys fluctuated between 280 and 360 most of his life. He's been a training partner of mine since 2000. In order to work with this guy, I know when he's 260 to 280 because my feet can touch each other from guard. But if he gets bigger than that, my toes are strangers. They don't touch each other. So I got really good at getting to half guard and just surviving there until I worked with Jeremy Horn and the underhook and working from and going underneath the legs. It just really opened up. It made jiu-jitsu beautiful for me again. It was like a real awakening. That was in 2003. So there's a couple of moves that I taught guys. And at this point, I've had 1,200 different students, and some of them know some moves. Like they know that I name dropped Jeremy Horn in there. We have a side choke variation going underneath the armpit that we call the Jeremy Horn choke instead of any other names. So I credit him a lot, and I was just working with him 1 week. Also rolling toe hold, which I was able to hit against a black belt, and in competition won the Grappler's Quest. I didn't get the tap from it, but he got it out. But he was pretty hurt. Wound up, I think, losing a decision on that. But again, that was Jeremy Horn who taught me how to set that up and go for it. He'd been practicing it before one of the Grappler's Quest super fights, and I was his training dummy. And blew me away how he set this up, and then he did it live in the match, and he hit it and got the submission. So I was like, wow, guy's got that kind of set up and tool in his pocket that he can just whip out and utilize. That that was somebody I wanted to emulate.
And what do you remember about like the scene back then, as far as like the underground and also just the overall NHB scene? Like, did you go to any of the UFC events or?
The first UFC event I went to was UFC 31, and the reason I went was that I think we had gotten together enough people that we got a discount on a block of tickets. This is just before the Fertitta brothers and Dana White had come in. It was still SEG, and as things were going so crazy, Jeff Munson had failed his CAT scan or his MRI, one of the Jersey shows down in Atlantic City. So I was willing to take his spot and fight Chuck Liddell. So Kip Kohler, the guy who runs Naga, he was trying to work this through me too. I fought a couple weeks before, so we thought my blood tests and everything would still be good. So guys are scrambling. I got a mouthpiece in my car. I'm running back to the parking deck to get that. Somebody got me shorts. I'm going to fight Chuck Liddell in a little while. And then the athletic commission put a kibosh on it. They figured that my blood, one of the blood tests was like a week too long. So they didn't let me, but Dana was appreciative that I was willing to step up last minute. So going to that UFC and being backstage and being rushed around like that, Chuck Liddell came over and he thanked me for offering. And he also bitched about not getting paid what he was supposed to get paid. Dana had said that I would fight Phil Baroni as a reward for me stepping up like this. So he's like, wow, this is great. So I wind up fighting for one more time for the IFC. I fought Joey Villasenor. And he wound up giving me this nice scar I have on my head. I don't know if the light's blocking it too much, but a nice knee to the head scar, completely legal. It was on an Indian reservation in California. And Fresno, right. It was one of the cage, IFC cage warriors, maybe. I forgot the exact name. He hit me pretty hard. I forgot the exact name of the show. So I still had stitches and everything in me. So that kind of blew me up for the next UFC. But I still got to be a cornerman at UFC 32 for Elvis Sinisek because of the underground and my connection through there. Me living in New Jersey, knowing where to get water bottles, knowing where the hospital was, knowing things that his cornermen would need. When Dana asked me, hey, could you, Dana asked me to help out Randy Couture with a training spot. So all of a sudden, like I'm backstage, I'm going to be Elvis Sinisek's corner man. And Dana White says, hey, could you help out Randy Couture with someplace to train? So I remember calling out of work the next day, going to pick up Randy Couture by a hotel in Secaucus, New Jersey, near the Meadowlands Arena that the UFC 32 was going to be at. And he's hanging out with Mark Kerr, the camera crew from the Smash Machine, and one more guy. He was an editor for Full Contact Writer. Got his name, but anyway,
Joel
Randy.
Gold.
Say again?
Joel Gold.
No.
Oh.
Different. He was this is after Joel kind of stepped back from it more. After Tom DeFazio too. What the heck was his name? Aaron something. Aaron Creasy. Here we go. Aaron Creasy. So yeah, I guess this was 2001. Joel Gold was always, it was his baby. Tom DeFazio was the guy underneath him. And then this guy had, I think, eventually became, one of the editors for there. So anyway, I have, this meeting of, hey, look, this UFC and Pride legends. So we're all hanging out, checking out each other's ears. So I think Creasy had the one ear real bad. And Kerr has one ear real bad. Both my ears pretty gnarly. Never wrestled, but just the years of MMA and jiu-jitsu. And I was already ugly anyway, so I didn't care. Took a toll on it. But when we started discussing, like, how come some guys just get that really nasty, gnarly cauliflower ear on one side, not the other? And, talking about it, well, I guess, if you pull out of headlocks from one direction more than the other, it'll get folded that way, maybe it's genetics. So the camera crew for the Smash Machine, they were on a break. They had all put their stuff down. So Mark Kerr comes up to me and he goes, yeah, this ear thing, man, my girl, we know from the Smash Machine who his girl is, she likes to kiss the nice looking ear. And then she feels bad for not kissing the nasty ear. But when she kisses that ear, it gives me a little problems with performance. But don't tell anybody that. Oh, I shouldn't tell anybody. But it was nice that Mark Kerr talked about his ED, his ear-related ED, symptoms. But I got to work out that day with Randy and Aaron Creasy. We went to go roll at the gym I was training at in North Arlington, New Jersey. And I got to roll them we did like a round robin 5 times. And I survived 3 out of the 5 rounds against Randy Couture. And I felt pretty darn good about myself. But when he crunched up on me the 2 times, it was incredible. The strongest person I ever worked out with. I would put him slightly above Matt Hughes and Matt Hughes above Phil Baroni in my experience, pro MMA guys that I worked out with, that I felt like I was fighting with a bronze statue. Really couldn't do anything unless he decided to move and I had an opportunity to scramble. It just feels different. And when I worked out with Randy, he had gotten a mount, and in that mount, I did a huge bump. He didn't move on the bump, but I think he was setting up for arm bar. So I rolled belly down, crawled backwards, and I went up grabbing his ankles and, pulling his ankles out, climbing up his back like I had done the most amazing things in the world. And as I'm working to try to take his back, he took me off like he was taking off his jacket. And he just put me down in front of him. And I hadn't been manhandled like that ever. So it was not that I'm an incredibly strong guy, but this just seemed superhuman. Seemed like he was a Marvel character, Captain America. He had the serum, the super soldier serum. So afterwards, he says, "Hey Eddie, that was a good Belgium." I was like, "I have no idea what a Belgium is." So he showed me what a Belgian takedown is, when you have someone's back and you drop and you pull both ankles out. That's a way to set up a Belgium. And I wound up adding that to my repertoire, and it helped me in quite a few matches. Because hey, if I can pull one off on Randy Couture, I can pull it off on somebody else with the opportunities there. I think I caught his training partner with a triangle arm bar at some point. And the last sub that Randy got in the 5th roll, he got me with a key lock. But it took a long time because I was pretty flexible. I kept getting my hands back together, kept interfering with my head. And it took him a long time to get that key lock on me, probably over a minute before he finally got the tap, near the end of the time. So, a little temerity on my point, where I said, "Hey, Randy, can I show you something?" Yeah, like he kept pulling the elbow up. If you brought my elbow closer to my hip, you changed your grip a little bit to, higher on the wrist, more around the thumb, and you put a little twist on that, I think it would have tapped me out faster. And I showed him, and he appreciated it. So then for the next 10 years, I was waiting for him to hit a key lock so I could say, "Hey, I helped Randy Couture get a better key lock," but it never happened. So I still have the memory. And my buddy shows up when we're done rolling, and he takes a picture of me, Aaron, and Randy Couture. It's a Polaroid picture, and it's completely blurry, so nobody has any idea who I'm there with, but it's still a nice memory for me. So yeah, it's like I said very, very early on, the access to you can really, it wouldn't be too hard for anybody to just find out, where at that time where such and such person trains. Hey, I want to go work out with Tito Ortiz. Hey, I want to go work out with Anderson Silva. And if you can get there, they're going to roll with you. They're going to fight with you. And that was amazing. I went down to Houston to visit family, and I got to roll with Eve Edwards and Sam Adkins. I think Eve Edwards caught me with my first inside heel hook. So I remember adding that to the repertoire. He taught me that. And Sam Adkins smothered me from scarf hold. It was very early. It was probably 1999 or 1998. Might have been late 1998. So a couple of years go by. I go back, and after I've been competing for a while, I go to roll in Houston again, and I wound up getting Sam Adkins in scarf hold, and he complained of a cramp just before I was getting the arm bar. That escape. Oh, I'm cramping. Stop.
Yeah.
So I felt like, that's a good. Here's a guy who fought in the UFC. Granted early on and with a limited repertoire of wrestling and boxing, I believe, and Jeet Kune Do. It was at Tim Moussel's place in Houston. But it's funny, years later, at one of the another event in Atlantic City, Enter the Lion's Den was the one that Ken Shamrock show he was trying to get off the ground. Sam Adkins is fighting Ken Shamrock in the main event. Again, he doesn't have enough people helping in his corner, so I stepped up to be his corner man. So at some point I get to corner against Ken Shamrock and against Tito Ortiz for Elvis Sinisic. That was a nice, at the time, it was a pretty cool thing. And, Sam, I remember telling him, you got to keep it on your feet. Don't go to the ground for any reason. Don't let, take some extra space back, make him chase you. And once it's jab and crossing, we're going to work that. And Ken had come out in one of the press conferences at one of the Atlantic newspapers and said how he'd been working on his stand-up, and he was going to make it a complete stand-up game. He was going to wow us. And he winds up shooting in like the first 10, 15 seconds and submitting Sam Adkins pretty easily. So, but it's funny, these people come in and out of your life. I got to, see, some of the last minute, scrambling that some of these shows have to do to put fights together and get an appreciation for that. And then, on the other end, that you see a lot of the fighters that are being taken advantage of, kept on a string. They never really have an opponent or whatever. They're there as a backup. If they sold tickets or not, and that was their, that's how they made money back then. That's one of the things I avoided. I never allowed myself to be in a position of having to sell tickets. I was pretty good at negotiating money up front. Back in those days, was the IFC. It was a 4-man tournament. It was $500 to win the first fight, $1,000 to win a tournament, which, when you consider how much they made. But the promise was, if you win this fight, you're going to fight for the Atlantic City IFC Extreme Challenge, not Extreme Challenge. IFC wasn't an IFC, was it? Told you got hit in the head a lot, right? But I forgot where we're sub IFC tournament in Atlantic City. I got to fight with the heavyweight champion. That was the one where I went up winning from the underneath mount, and then there's a little more money. Maybe that's $2,500, but it was a promise to fight in California for some real money, and I guess they did pretty good for me. It was a couple thousand plus hotel, and they rented us a convertible. But I guess that was the one in Fresno. The trick with that was to save money. They had me fly to Chicago from Newark, from Chicago to, I think it was somewhere in Iowa, and then from Iowa to LA. It was some kind of crazy 3-part thing, and we were awake more than 24 hours, and we had to drive from LA to Fresno. It's cool to have a whatever it was, convertible Sebring, but I would have appreciated the sleep. We got there just in time for weigh-ins, and
yeah, it's ridiculous, like how they did that stuff, because that drive from LA to Fresno is a pretty long one.
Yeah. And I had my cornerman with me, but we're both exhausted because I'm not a frequent flyer, so this wasn't something I was used to. I'm trying to think who else was on that card. Toby Amata was on that card. I think Dennis Hosh. But yeah, you meet people that that are just letters on an underground forum, or just the screen names, and you put a face to them. You find out who's a big talker and who can really put up, and most guys can really put up if they're fighting. One of the guys I always wanted to meet, find out if he was legit or not, Striker 18. Is that a real guy?
Yeah, I remember him.
You met him?
No, I said I remember him.
I
believe tell people about Kerr, because I'm still really heavily following it, right? And people see like Francis Ngannou today. I don't know how much you're following it, but I don't think people realize just how scary Kerr and Coleman were. When they're saying Francis is probably the best heavyweight to ever fight in the UFC, but those guys like Kerr and Coleman were pretty, they were very like formidable, especially in the early years of Kerr's career.
I get a funny Walid Ishmael story that I saw Coleman being interviewed, and he talked about this. I'm not sure if it's the same location. I think there's UFC 31 again, and Edson Carvalho was my jiu-jitsu instructor at the time, and Henzo was there. He had, I think, I forgot who he had. He had someone fighting, so he's at the after party. And in Brazil, supposedly Walid had beef with both Edson and Henzo. So they're it's an after party at a Lang City hotel. So they have the buffet, all the stuff, and Henzo has his back to the center of the room, and Edson has his back to the center of the room, and Walid sees they're both there. And I can see Walid looking back and forth, and he runs between them, and he gets out of there. He like takes off. And so it was invisible to a lot of people in the room. But I remember, being saying, well, I guess Edson's, stories about Walid, being a tough guy, a troublemaker, but an opportunist in Brazil, might have been true. But there was some story of Walid, I guess, beating up Tank Abbott, in an elevator or in a hallway at some point. I think it was a different event. But at the end of the day, everybody's a real person, and not a superhero, and not a figment of our imaginations. So when you see one of these guys in a real life situation, or extremely sad or disappointed, sort of crushed Phil Baroni after he lost a match, one of the UFCs, and those real moments. I wish I would have been a photographer to catch some of that. But it's one of the things that you take with you in your head, that that everybody out there, whether they're playing a part or pretending to to be larger than life, they're not. Conor McGregor, I'm sure wants everybody to think he is, in a lot of ways, he behaves larger than life to probably compensate for some deep-seated pain. Not that I came here to be a Conor McGregor apologist, but everybody's a real person, and I think we can have forgiveness and understanding, especially after the back. Hindsight's 2020 at any of these guys that were villains, back in the day. I never met Gordeau, the guy who had he hit so many fouls. It was like his part-time job, between the eye and and just all kinds of stuff. And I thought he'd be an interesting person to talk to, like what motivated him to be that way. I remember when Henzo stepped on Ben Spiker's neck after he beat him in World Cage Combat. That whole story, from different directions, looked like Henzo's the bad guy there. And it definitely wasn't good sportsmanship. If you choke a guy unconscious, you really don't need to walk across his neck now. But supposedly Spikers have been calling his room all night and saying nasty things about him, about his wife, about his family, and trying to get into his head. The weird story is like Henzo didn't know how to disconnect the phone, so he put it in his suitcase and he wrapped it up with his gi and he put it under his bed. But he was fuming about it all night, and that's why he had to step on Ben Spiker's neck. Jeremy Horn beating Chael Sonnen 3 times, I think it was. It's 3 times, with lots of talk from Sonnen every time. I think he spit on him. Jeremy Horn was just so sick of it. I think he spit on him one of the times, which not his best moment, but guys can only take so much, but Kale is trying to put on a show. I think he's trying to sell for both guys in a way that not everybody can deal with. So yeah, at the end of the day, I love any of the fans out there. Just remember, these are all real people. They have faults, they have good points, they have families. So that's all I got to say about that.
But I mean, why do you think the sport became like that now, to where it's kind of a little bit more accepted to be out there like that and behave like that?
The boxing and the pro
Before, it was
wrestling,
much more for honor. In the early years of NHB, guys were just trying to, you always heard, I want to test myself. I want to test my skills. It wasn't really about the other person necessarily, but now it's very personal, it seems.
yeah, a combination of financial, put pressure by the UFC and other entities. They want, hey, you gotta put it out there in a way that all those wannabes that have money to spend are gonna like boxing and pro wrestling. Have been doing it for a long time. Gratuitous. It's not gratuitous violence. It's it's a technical, sport that humbles everybody that does it. But guys want to pretend that it doesn't. And Tito was one of the guys back in the day that they used to claim he trained 2 hours of wrestling, 2 hours of boxing, 2 hours of Thai, 2 hours of jiu-jitsu, and 2 hours of conditioning every day. Like, nobody's training 10 hours hard every day. It just doesn't work. But he wanted to create a legend of who Tito Ortiz is, and now that's gone so far over the top that everybody wants to be that persona all the time. Tito on the TUF program, we got to see a more real side of him, because he couldn't keep up that act the whole time, and people liked him more. I liked him more after that. But the way it is now, the UFC wants to be the product. They don't want the fighters to be the product, but they want the fighters to be interesting enough and interchangeable enough of aggressive, hard guys that are going to resonate with some people. All the guys that are loud and obnoxious on a bar stool. Conor McGregor's like, I could get on my bar stool, get in shape in about 6 weeks, and I could do what he's doing. Yeah, that's me. We want to live vicariously, and it's just not real. So it's disappointing. I wish people understood it more real. And it's one of the things that when I had a gym, I had 2 gyms, one in Lodi that got flooded from Hurricane Irene, and one in Teterboro instead of a Gold's Gym. So at the Gold's Gym, we had bodybuilders and giant guys that we're sure they're going to be good at this, and they'd come in, get humbled, and you'd never see it again. They wouldn't talk about it again. They wouldn't make eye contact. It was very humbling for them, and they didn't like that. But you overhear these guys talking still about how tough they are, and how they got angry, they could wreck anybody, and it's just it's disappointing. It's I wish the average IQ was higher in the world, and it doesn't seem like it's going that way. People, the base idea of that the toughest, angriest, most obscene person will be the one that people are going to pay to watch, win or lose, is disappointing. I guess that's why I don't follow it as much as I did back in the day, when it was more interesting. Of even when I got past style versus style, it was how people prioritize their training of one style or technique or weighted. I love watching DJ Penn, and a guy incredible at jiu-jitsu, who became a very aggressive and effective boxer, and had difficulty even training with Rene Couture. Rene Couture had trouble keeping him down. That he had this creative way of getting back to his feet and hopping around, incredible balance. I still think that the style versus style time was like the golden age that we can never have back. What we have now is we have all very highly trained guys that don't want to lose. So sometimes they'll edge sometimes too much on safety, or they'll go balls to the walls crazy and try to get the highlight and the fight of the night money. And it seems like it could be tempered someplace a little more respectful, a little more honorable, and it isn't.
I still think the Dagestanis today are still kind of like the guys that fought back then. They're not
Okay, yeah,
too they're not out there very much. They're pretty quiet and they just kind of go about their business in the cage. Like Khabib, I think could have fought back then.
the
Kind of a
yeah,
very one centric style, a wrestling centric style, one style that he could just make work over and over again. He could have been dropped right back in that era and would have fit in.
absolutely, and tough and respectful. Everybody who's really a fan should like that, but they still want their showman, the guy who's just way over the top to yeah, I guess even in other sports too, a loud football player, basketball player, baseball player, they do an extra press conference, they get an extra sponsorship from whatever clothing line or adrenaline fueled drink, and I don't think it's good for the world. I wish people were just more reasonable, but hey, we come in all shapes and sizes, and it's all good.
Now, are you still training people today?
Only private lessons now. I got sick starting 2012 with something called CIDP. It's called it stands for C is chronic, I inflammatory, D demyelinating. Had to learn that word, and then P polyradicular neuropathy. So basically, it's like multiple sclerosis, where it's a peripheral nerve disease that it takes away the covers of your nerves. So I started getting tingling and around my face, my mouth, the tips of my fingers, my toes in the summer of 2012. And I guess maybe earlier in my life, it would come and go. I remember even when I was in high school, swimming or track, I used to get numb toes before competition. And I'd massage them and try to work them out. But it never crept past there. But then starting in the summer of 2012, it crept up to my ankles, to my knees, from my fingertips to my elbows, eventually to my shoulders. And it went into so bad where it turned into flaccid paralysis, which, lots of guys love talking about flaccid paralysis, but the muscles wouldn't activate when I asked them to with my arms. So my arm would just go limp and I wouldn't be able to lift it, wouldn't obey. And so we went through all the gamut of tests of neurological problems. And, they looked at Parkinson's, they looked at MS. And when that didn't come up, they were kind of stuck. So it took the seventh muscular neurologist or seventh neurologist, a muscular neurologist, to figure it out with EMGs and NCV tests, electromuscular velocity, NCV, nerve velocity conduction, if I remember correctly. So they put needles in you and they send voltage through to a sensor, and they try to activate your muscles and get you to do reflexes, and things weren't working right. So they did a spinal tap. They figured out what it was. It's pretty rare. Guillain-Barré disease is actually the acute version of this. I have the chronic version where it lasts longer. So I got put on a blood product. So I had a nurse start coming to my house. I'm still trying to run my gym the best I can, but for a gym that I had for years, running 7 days a week, I was teaching 5 or 6 days a week. My guys stepped up as much as they could, but at the end of the day, I had to downsize and close it down. Against my will. I was trying to, I just figured, hey, I'll be tough and I'll find a way through this. When you buy it don't work, you buy it don't work. So the nurse would come and give me an infusion every 3 weeks for 3 days. It was 5 to 7 hours each day. IG is the name of the blood product, Gamma Guard, and it was it's actually donated blood that stabilizes your own white blood cells so they don't attack your nerve coverings. So with that change, it kind of slowed things down. And I was having a little bit better days, but it would fluctuate. I didn't know what I was going to get every day. What I hadn't mentioned earlier in the interview was I got into gymnastics in 2000. So I was 27, 28 years old. And my little girl, my oldest, she's much older now. She has an apartment in New York City, was doing mommy me classes. And while she was there, I was kind of bored. And hey, can I play with the rings? Okay, can I play with the parallel bars? I always liked doing cartwheels and handstands. And so eventually the owner, showed me some stuff, and I started working out with the teenage boys there. I had gymnastics to my stuff. So, I have a couple of matches where I did a front flip over someone's guard, one grappling and one MMA. It's usually one of my profile pictures on Facebook. But yeah, this gymnastic stuff. This is great training for MMA for vestibular awareness and body positioning and overall strength. So I liked being able to do this, and then to be. I was 39 when the sickness came upon me, that it was taking away things so quickly. I went from being able to do multiple walking on my hands and backflips to now I need a cane. Now I need help getting upstairs or out of a car. So it debilitated me and diminished me physically very quickly. So over that year, pre-diagnosis, took about 11 months before they figured out what it was. And then starting the treatment, and then the treatment, kicks the crap out of your liver and your kidneys. She put in this thick, viscous IG immunoglobulin into your body, and your body has to process it. So, kind of like chemo, where, the chemo is necessary to kill the cancer, but the chemo is also hurting your body. So it's a bit of a trade-off. So I was on that IVIG from 2013 until 2019. And then there was an advancement where you can do it subcutaneously. So now I don't need a nurse to come to my house. I miss my nurse. She was very nice. But, it was definitely very invasive to have, IVs every 3 weeks and try to live a life and, do the things you want to do. So now my wife and I can do it ourselves with 6 smaller needles. And it takes about 3 hours once a week. It doesn't work quite as well as the IVIG, but, not as active as I once was. So I guess it's a nice compromise that it's less invasive, takes less time out of my life. But still, I don't need a cane. I can walk upstairs slower than some days. And occasionally when I'm feeling real good, I can still do a couple of really cool things. But, knock on wood somewhere, the jiu-jitsu, when you have no strength, when you have no endurance, or, limited strength, limited stamina, you have to rely on the technique and the timing and, the setups and having a good strategy. So it goes back to, what I always learned. So, I'm still pretty formidable on the mat. Even boxing, I can box pretty good. I have a little more trouble with kickboxing for balance issues and, pre-existing knee problems. But, I feel that if I didn't have the buffer of all the training in mixed martial arts, this disease would have done quite a different number on me. I'd probably been in a wheelchair, maybe hospitalized for longer than I had been, intubated, which is scary. I don't have it down here, but one of the new things that my doctor has me on is a ventilator. So at night I'm supposed to use a ventilator to breathe, because I have something called central diaphragm cessation, Ondine's curse, which sounds scary as hell. But occasionally at night, different than sleep apnea, the diaphragm part of your peripheral nerve stops working and you don't breathe automatically. So I asked you right now to, breathe automatically or breathe manual, breathe on your own. We can switch back and forth without thinking about it. But if you're swimming, you have to breathe very methodically. And so, occasionally my diaphragm, and, we had a real scary incident back in 2013, it put me in the hospital where my diaphragm stopped working automatically for about 8 hours. So I had to breathe on purpose for 8 hours. And they had the intubation kit and everything and the oxygen. They're like, if you want to take a nap or anything, we'll intubate you. And I was like, no, I'll breathe on my own for as long as I can, because, that doesn't seem like, a good thing to, start having to rely on this machine to breathe for you. So, knock on wood, it hadn't gotten that bad. But, for me to maybe have a little better quality of life, if I gotta, use a ventilator for sleeping so I can have a better day. Because sleep deprivation, which everybody's familiar with at one time or other in their life, does a number on you. Short-term memory loss and all kinds of issues. That was actually one of the early symptoms. Was that because I was having all these problems with my nerves and spasms and movements and deadening. It's called paresthesia, numbness and tingling. It was affecting my sleep. So with no sleep, the next day I'd have lots of problems with short-term memory. My wife was looking at the window once, and I drove around the block to move the car for street cleaning, and I came all the way around the block, And it's like, wait, I gotta move the car for street cleaning. And supposedly I had done this a number of times, I'm embarrassed to say how many times I may have gone around the block, but it would just go away that quickly. So the extra challenges of doing the CIDP maintenance stuff, and still trying to get in a little jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing. I have a couple of private lesson clients. I cover classes for some of my other guys. So it's pretty cool. A lot of the guys that I trained over the years, they have their black belts in jiu-jitsu. They have their own schools. They have their own things going on, and it's cool to pop in and know that I was part of that lineage. I showed them some stuff, but at the end of the day, you can't really take credit for what another person does. You can just influence a little bit. But the amount of training I do right now is unfortunately probably 1/10 of the amount of training I would like to do, but the cost on other aspects of my life, being able to do things with my kids or my wife, which wouldn't work out. So I gotta kind of plan and save a fluctuating amount of energy, but it just makes me more interesting. That's all.
Now, what do you think? A lot of the better grapplers now are coming out of your area, with the Enzo's guys, like our Donahur's guys and Gordon Ryan, some of the guys in no gi. So, as you've kind of not training as much, but seeing all this advancement coming from your area, what do you think about that?
Oh, it's funny. Leg locks were one of the things I think we got on the East Coast a little later than the West Coast, but then the East Coast kind of more than caught up from it. And there's so many different. Couture was the first guy that I did a seminar over here. I took one of the seminars, and I learned outside heel hook and toe hold. The concepts for them, I think, weren't taught as well as, I guess, the concepts for an arm bar. It was more like, hey, do it like this, make it look like mine, as opposed to controlling the knee. And I think that's the big change that happened when people learned how to control the knee, and they realized they could flow from one sub to another. And they stopped making a 50-50 all the time. 50-50s are good when both guys don't know the same thing. Then, give a 50-50, we both have one leg, then whoever knows more has an advantage. But, the other way of doing it, where you don't put you don't put your other leg through for them, and you have the leg, and that's like the ideal way that you would, get the leg locks over here. So I think Danaher, definitely prioritizes, attacking, any opportunity. And he's got guys isolating those legs and having all the transitions and the switches into them. We had a guy, what was his name? Who's the guy that did the flying heel hooks in the UFC? Text his name. From Massachusetts. He's in the UFC.
Lozon?
Yeah, Joe Lozon was one of the early leg lock innovators for our area. And Joe Lozon, he hit a flying heel hook, I think, on Kip Kohler, one of the events. But just learning how to isolate that knee and just follow up relentlessly. As long as you're attacking the guy more than they can counter and roll out, and they can't get any good strikes on you, it's all good stuff. And when you go to just grappling and nobody can punch you or kick you off, then if you have a good flow and you can just be relentless with it, it's a great equalizer. I think the change was, from what I was told, was in jiu-jitsu in Brazil, you're a little girl if you chase somebody's foot. If you're a man, you'd meet me up top. But then we had Palhares who changed that way, where he's like, hey, it's all, I'm not a little girl, look how big my upper body is, but if I get a hold of your leg, I'm gonna take it home. Maybe he went to a fault where he wouldn't stop when guys were tapping. But the idea that the technique evolved slower than the chokes and the joint locks that control the knee, became like one of the things that the East Coast, I guess, got a grasp of a little bit sooner than the rest of the country or the rest of the world. Might be the difference.
Yeah, a lot of the teaching and the instructionals are so advanced now, as far when it comes to the steps and why you do things the way you do it from back in the day. It's like, man, I wish some of the stuff was available, 20
Did you have
years
a
ago,
Did you have a fighter's notebook?
No, but I did talk to Kerr about it, because I did one of these with him.
I had a fighter's notebook that I bought, and I loaned it to Dante Rivera before he fought in the UFC. He was one of my students for a while, and he borrowed it and never gave it back to me. Then he went to fight in the UFC, and he definitely was a leg lock machine for a while. But the any of the magazines and the step by step, like that, compared to a video, the video is superior to a magazine or to a book. But you got to feel it, and you got to know, the flow. Where's the weight that doesn't translate in a magazine or in panels or a video all the time. Sometimes they talk about the options. Hey, he's putting more weight forward. I'm gonna slide out to the underhook side of a half guard and start threatening his back. When he slides over to block that, I'm gonna go under his leg and change to an electric chair. And these things, if you're not feeling where the weight is for that, they don't make a lot of sense. You don't really know what your options are. So I think the flow chart kind of way of teaching. Here's your option. All right, if you're in guard, your options are to try to sweep elevator, sweep scissors, go flower sweep, change to a Kimura. You Kimura hip bump sweep. People have their game, and then when they add and they adjust to that and they personalize it to themselves and their body type and their opponent's body type, it's hard to translate that to somebody else. It'd be such an incredible chart to have all over the wall of the flow of the if-then statements. If they post forward, then do this, this, or this, and it would loop back on itself. Kimura, guillotine, hip bump sweep is probably one of the chains that a lot of jiu-jitsu places will teach, because it's very effective. That you can just go back and forth between these three moves over and over again, left side, right side, Kimura, hip bump, and they kind of feed into it. I go for the hip bump sweep, and the guy drives forward, so I go for the guillotine, and when the guy blocks the guillotine, I go for the Kimura, and it just flows off of that. And those are three separate moves. But then when you go into the subtlety of the leg locks, okay, if they turn out this way and they start peeling your knees apart, you're going to switch from one leg to another by pulling this little cup you have behind the crook of the knee, and you're going to get them to turn over mechanically. That little subtlety and that issues of physics in there, you have to feel it. So I guess when people start teaching and prioritizing that, as opposed to looking at the panels in a black belt magazine or whatever magazine of, hey, I think there's something missing between panel 4 and 5. How do you get from the teleport? How do you get over here? That's important. And and people with their training partners, they figured out and they innovated for themselves. So some things that Gordon Ryan, I think I met out in one of the Grapplers West when he was still early with the 50-50 stuff. And who's that? Gary Tonin, that's one of the guys that's over here. I seen him flow, and it's still evolving. But basically it's about being calm and having plans and flows that whatever the defense is. If the defense is a common defense, everybody knows what to do. If it's a less common defense, well, less people are going to know what to do to counter that defense or flow to the next thing. It's also knowing when to give up. You start chasing a heel hook that you're not going to get and wind up getting pounded for it in MMA, or you lose position terribly in straight up grappling, then maybe you should have flowed to a different move or regathered guard or get half guard back. I was never a position player. Really, I would dive for submissions, any which way, but I'd try to flow them like a machine gun, try to find another submission. Okay, I gotta go to defense, relax, but even off defense, can I get a submission from over here? That Jeremy Horn choke that I talked about, I was able to hit that from the bottom of side mount so many times because people thought that they were in control in the top side mount. They weren't thinking about being attacked because it's so rarely done. The leg lock I got from the bottom of the mount at that the IFC Tropicana event, same thing. Like the guy thought that there is no danger there, and it's a different mindset as it evolves. That you're always in danger when the other person still has a heartbeat.
Yeah. Now, maybe as we're winding down the interview, I'm kind of wondering, with all your experience and as guys who have trained from way back in the day, what is something that maybe you thought was most important that you took away from all this, or something that you advice you would give to somebody who was starting out today?
Well, one of the things I regret is I wish I had more video and pictures, and I documented more. I used to make fun of people that wanted to document everything, and now I wish I had it. I'm 48 years old. I'll turn 49 in January, and like the process and the enjoying it and being able to show it to my kids and maybe their kids someday. I got bits and pieces here. So if anybody out there hears this and they have a VHS or DVDs that I might be missing, let's connect and get them trade copies. But yeah, I tell them to enjoy anybody new getting into this, enjoy the process, find your own way through it, and figure out what your goals are and adjust for them. When anybody came into my gym, they might not want to compete right away. I wouldn't force anybody to compete. And other people come in, hey, I want to compete. And, they figure it out really early on. Is that really something they want to do, or something they thought they want to do? But either way, we try to help people get towards their goals. Is your goal to, learn this for self-defense and because you want to understand the sport better? Hey, that's a fine goal. We'll help you towards that. Is your goal to be the best you can be in the world? I'll help you the best I can. But, I also, think that the loyalty has to be to yourself. If you have to move on to another gym, and find different partners, or go to open mats, or, travel the country a little bit, that's definitely something you should do. Your loyalty is not to a trainer or instructor, it's to yourself. Or else, you wind up being a very good training partner for somebody else. And they're using you, kind of like a punching bag or a throwing dummy, instead of you, finding out, what is your potential? What can you do? And then the other thing is I would show somebody, if they're especially set on competing, is, the promoter's lying if his lips are moving. So don't believe anything they're saying. But, the matchups, the fighters should be willing to fight anybody they put in front of them. But his cornerman and his manager and his trainers, they should be hopefully looking out for their interests. And that's something I didn't have. I was just willing to fight whoever they put in front of me, regardless of experience and weight differences or whatever. And I definitely, I had fun doing it. It was honorable, I thought, to do that, but it wasn't smart game plan for a long fighting career. I went 5-5 as a pro, because I think, I didn't just take any easy fight that, the automatic win. Hey, what's available? What's the best we can do? Forget about money. What's the best opponent opportunity? Hey, I get to travel to California from Jersey. Yeah, I'm all about that. So enjoy the experience, and keep your knees safe. The knees are the first to go.
Well, Eddie, I wanted to thank you for taking time to do this. And, it's really interesting to talk to you. I know you're not following the sport as much, but maybe I could catch up with you on something if you had another, maybe to comment on maybe a recent happening in the sport or something.
About 9 years ago, I did a color commentary for some of the Ring of Combats back there, and I enjoyed doing it. It was just before I started getting sick, so I didn't really follow up on it. But yeah, I did enjoy analysis and breakdowns. I like was the guy Mind Smash is one of the YouTube channels I watch. Right now, I guess I'm not following the sport closely, but I do love a good breakdown and highlights, and see what's going on. And I'd be happy to come back and talk about something we could set up, so I come up informed and educated. I don't want to fake my way through it.
So what was that Mind Smash you said?
Yeah, Mind Smash. I'm not sure what part of the world this gentleman is from, but he has a very sedate voice, and he talks you through the moves, and he breaks it down with the setups. And let's go back and look at how beautiful, and it's really done so well. He does some artistic color effects sometimes, where it's back to black and white or sepia tones. But he'll show how a fighter set up 3 times during a match for something to happen, and then landed the move he's going for. He's got excellent breakdowns. So that's somebody, I don't know him personally, but Mind Smash, if you ever wanted to talk, I'd love to talk to you. I think you're a very interesting person out there. But check him out. And I think I told you about the author Mark Tullius. Right. I think he'd be a great interview for you. That would be good cross promotional. for a guy who's fought and had great experiences on the West Coast. And he was nice enough to put me in my book, so I got to put me in his book. So I definitely have to give him a shout out.
What's their book called?
His book was called
No, yours.
I
Your
don't have a
book.
book yet.
Oh.
I'm too distracted. I've got that ADHD thing going.
Oh, I
if
thought you
ever sit
mentioned
down-
you had a book. So
No, I'm in his book, Unlocked in the Cage.
okay.
So yeah, Mark Tullius, if you he'd be a very interesting interview. He's traveling to write that book. He traveled the country and trained all over, met with everybody, and he fought out in the West Coast, fought out in I believe in Hawaii too, maybe. Not 100% sure about that, but yeah, Mark Tullius definitely hit him up.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Eddie. It was great talking to you.
Well, it was ego satisfying, and I like to satisfy my ego. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and maybe before we go, you could talk about your signature and how you built that.
I had to look that up. I had it on business cards for a while. But yeah, when I was on the underground, I was trying to get at that point, the internet wasn't like it is now. You didn't have YouTube and all these sources. So I figured, I won something, and I wouldn't just put any old thing on there. I won the intermediate heavyweight championship of Naga for the year, point total. So it wasn't like one match and I put it up, but it was a point A. So I put that on there. And then the next year I won the advanced division in Naga for light heavyweight or middleweight or whatever it was. So, every time I won something of that importance, or I won a tournament, I would add that to it. And Striker 18 was one of the guys that would mock me for it. That oh, how obnoxious! Look at this guy. What's the big deal? I don't think these events are real. But yeah, it was the Naga Intermediate Super Heavyweight Championship, 2000 Naga Fighter of the Year. So that replaced all the other Naga stuff I had. The ISFA Northeast Regional Shoot Fighting Heavyweight Champion. Chip as the Bamas, Dan Regalado shows, and I won that for the super heavyweight also. That was one that was on MSNBC, and I got the name of it now. It's the 2000 IFC Battleground Heavyweight Tournament Champion, and then the 2001 IFC Battleground Heavyweight Champion, where I defeated Kareem Ellington, who this is where I love MMA math. He beat a guy who beat a guy who beat a guy that beat Anderson Silva. I will live off that for the rest of my life.
So did you have to cut and paste it every time? How did it work? Or
Yeah,
was it
I had
a signature?
I had a notepad opened up that I would adjust if I won or change things. So I think it was obnoxious. It was like 10 lines long, but then I consolidated the Naga stuff into 2000 Naga Fighter of the Year instead of the each of the years that I won the advanced division or grapplers class, whatever. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think the most commonly used one was 6 long. Anything after January 19, 2001, it was 6 levels long with my accomplishments 1999 to 2001. And I guess I stayed with the underground until like 2000. I feel like 2003, 2004 is when I started like fading out. I'm like just even using the internet. I think part of that is I have eye problems where I never needed glasses before, but vision is one of the things that goes. So that may be one of the things that kept me off there. But it worked. The signature would get me noticed, and I get to do a seminar or fight in a super fight, and I got to was the Armed Forces super fights. I forgot the guy I went against, but I wound up getting crushed on points, and the guy had mount on me, and he's not moving. He's not taking any chances. I'm trying to bait armbar, trying to bait choke. So I want to try to bounce him into a leg lock. And he's got grapevines in, and I didn't have enough tools at that time to get out of there. And somebody in the crowd was like, "Well, how's your signature now, Roland?" But it was definitely, but it got me that fight. It got me a trip to North Carolina. It got me meet some pretty cool. I met Carol LaRosa down there. We wound up hitting it off. She came in when I opened up my gym. She trained there for a little while. She and I to go off on a tangent a little bit, that armed forces thing. She was the only woman in a men's division or open division. I guess it was 135 pounds, but she tapped out 4 out of 5 of her opponents, and it was pretty badass. Armbar, guillotine, rear naked choke. in the final, she lost on points. But it was like one of the coolest things ever that, didn't matter how big and strong or how long these guys have been training, in the military, but, someone that had concentrated on technique and judo and jujitsu was able to, defy even the advantages of gender and defeat and humble all these guys. So I remember that being a pretty cool moment. That signature, I had it on obnoxious yellow cards, for my gym. And I don't regret doing that. It definitely it helped me meet more people and get more fights. So I'd do it again.
Yeah, it made you infamous. Yeah. Well, again, it was great talking to you, man. And I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll definitely catch up sometime soon.
I appreciate it. I got plenty more stories to sell. I'll lay them out there. I'll make sure I don't repeat myself. But I definitely got some stuff in my back pocket we can talk about.
All right, man. I appreciate it. It's great talking to you.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
Okay.